Paige Bergfeld disappeared on Thursday, June 28, 2007. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information you have to work with is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Paige Bergfeld's last known 24 hours may hold the clues to what happened to her.
I said, if she's missing, you're involved in a crime. She would never have left her kids.
A devoted mother of 3, beloved by friends and family alike, disappears without a word one hot summer day.
And I said, well, where's Rob? That was my first concern after everything she had been saying to me.
Friends are convinced that Paige's recent ex-husband must be involved. But detectives discover a secret part of Paige's life that holds more clues.
What we had learned was that she had been putting herself out there as an adult escort.
NaughtyNightLife.com advertised everything from threesomes to partner swapping, erotic massage.
Whatever line of work Paige is in, the job of the police is the same.
Who is it out there that thinks that they can take away from my grandchildren their mother? Who is this person? What kind of a human being is this?
Friday, June 22nd. Another gorgeous sunny day in western Colorado. Devoted moms Barbara Campbell and Paige Bergfeld are enjoying a pool party with their kids.
We'd been playing for a while, and then Paige showed up with her kids. Paige and I hung out for quite a while, and we got to talk more privately.
Barbara has often heard Paige's conflicting feelings about her recent ex-husband.
She started talking to me about Rob and being very worried.
On June 22nd, Barbara notices something out of the ordinary in Paige's manner.
At the pool party, she was downright scared. It was, I am really afraid that something's going to happen now.
Barbara is extremely concerned.
You hate for your friend to say that. You just want to make him safe, and you can't do that. My parting words to her were, don't worry about Rob. To see you, he'd have to come over Red Mountain Pass, and maybe the mountain will just take care of him. So it wasn't real polite, but it's one of those things you say to comfort a friend. I said that, and she kind of laughed, but she was obviously really troubled that maybe I need that to happen. And then she drove off. I certainly didn't know that within a week she would be gone.
4 days later, a local group of mothers has a get-together. On Tuesday, June 26th, about 20 members of the Grand Junction chapter of Moms Club meet for a night on the town.
MOMS stands for Moms Offering Moms Support, and it's an organization for stay-at-home moms, a lot of whom have home businesses and do lots of other things the way Paige did.
Moms Club was always a natural fit for Paige, with her devotion to family and to her children above all else.
Paige loved her children so much. She enjoyed being successful, but I know in her heart of hearts she probably wished that she just didn't have to work at all and could be with them all the time. We were all in awe of her. She probably had a huge influence on a lot of other moms and how they parented because she handled things differently. There wasn't a whole lot of yelling. She wanted to make everything calm and peaceful and stable.
At Tuesday night's dinner party, Paige can't quite maintain her normally sunny demeanor. Her friends notice something is wrong.
We met at the ale house here in town. Paige showed up a little bit late, and she looked gorgeous as always.
She had her normal glow about her. She was here, and you were going to notice her. Not because she insisted that you did, but just because that was her presence.
A couple of people said she looked beautiful, but she seemed sad.
There was something in her eyes that was bothering her, because that previous Friday where she was at my house and had unloaded all of this fear, and then to see that in her eyes, I was getting really worried for her.
But Barbara does not have the time that night for a heart-to-heart. She still wonders, to this day, what was on Paige's mind. Paige Bergfeld works hard so she can spend time with her children. Not only does she care for 3 small kids by herself, but she is also the sole financial provider for her family. These responsibilities generate some creative thinking on her part.
Paige found herself in a situation where she was the sole breadwinner to take care of her 3 kids and a large mortgage. I think she displayed some real ingenuity. She set up a series of dance schools.
I'm Paige Burkett, and I come once a week to the dance class.
She got into Pampered Chef, and she also sold these slings for nursing mothers. So she'd do different things to make money.
Reporter Nancy Lofholm has covered Grand Junction for the Denver Post for 16 years.
Pampered Chef is a wholesome type of business that women who were home with their kids, it was something they could do because they could have the parties at home and not have to go out and work.
Pampered Chef pays representatives a commission to promote their products through dinner parties.
Paige Bergfeld really made money at it. It sounds like she was good at it.
Two days later, Paige calls her friend Andrea, sounding much more upbeat than the other night.
I was in a hurry, and I rushed the conversation, and of course, hindsight, I wish I hadn't. But she sounded very happy. She sounded like she was really looking forward to the day.
Paige, in fact, has exciting plans. A positive force from her past has come back into her life. Her first love.
I think Paige was fairly typical. You know, Paige, as a high school kid, was kind of skinny, gawky, braces, so forth. I think her first real swept off her feet was Ron Bigler, who was her first husband. That was the big one. She actually got a 4-year scholarship in nursing, University of Florida in Gainesville. And then Ron Bigler moved down there too. And I would assume that distracted the academic pursuit. So they ended up moving back to Denver and got married fairly promptly after that.
Despite their love for each other, Ron is not yet ready to have children. Their differing feelings about parenthood eventually drive them apart.
Paige knew that family was going to be huge for her. She already had that mothering instinct that her kids were going to be the most important thing in her life. And so that's what kind of led that marriage astray. It was a very amicable divorce, and they wanted different things out of life, so they moved on.
The high school sweethearts always remain friendly. And 9 years later, after Paige is divorced from her second husband, Ron Bigler and Paige get back in touch.
Paige started talking about Ron about 3 months before she disappeared. It was funny because I knew something was up with her. It just seemed like there was a little switch that turned on, and she was just a little more sparkly, a little more happy. She talked to me about how she'd been seeing him and that she still really loved him and that this might be something that would work out.
It was a Thursday. She made arrangements to meet Ron Bigler halfway between Denver and Grand Junction. She drove 2 hours east, he drove 2 hours west.
For Paige, June 28th is starting out to be a very good day.
There's a picnic area, the river runs by, and they spend kind of a late afternoon doing that. She left and came back to Grand Junction. He went back east. When he arrived in Denver, about 2 hours, he called her. She wasn't quite to Grand Junction.
Paige and Ron agreed to talk again later that night when Paige gets home. But Ron never hears from her.
Friday morning, he called her, and her phone immediately rolled over into her voicemail.
This is odd. Because of Paige's children, she never turns her phone off and always keeps the battery charged. All day Friday, Ron continues to call Paige's cell phone.
He called her several times during the day, and it rolled over each time. Never touched base with her. Saturday morning, he called again, and it still did that. This time, he called the house.
And what Ron learns scares him.
My 8-year-old granddaughter answered and said that Paige had not come home Thursday night. Ron, to his great credit, called the Mesa County Sheriff's Office and reported it.
The first time I heard the name Paige Bergfeld was on June 30th, the day that she was reported missing.
This is one of these moments that's freeze-framed in my mind. There's certain events that you just can see it. Everything stops and you can see each detail. I'd gotten a cup of coffee at McDonald's and my cell phone rang, and the caller identified himself as a deputy sheriff with the Mesa County Sheriff's Office. And he said, "Do I know that my daughter Paige has been missing?" And I can just tell you that is a moment that, you just never want to have. I said, "No." I remember I paused and I said, "If she's missing, you're involved in a crime. She would never have left her kids." He asked me, "Do you know that she was involved in an adult business?" And I said, "No." And frankly, that's the first I had ever heard of such a thing.
It's the first indication that there may be danger beneath the surface of this model mother's life.
My staff told me that there was a mother who was missing and that the circumstances of her disappearance were unusual. This was a mother who, by all accounts, appears to love her children very much and would not deliberately be gone from them.
And I think we were en route within 20 minutes. Boy, when you get a call like that, you realize how nobody gets trained for that moment.
When he reports her missing, Paige's first husband informs the police that she is working in adult entertainment.
What we had learned was that she had been advertising and putting herself out there as an adult escort.
As a family, we didn't know anything about this adult business situation. I'm told by Ron that he knew that she was involved in an adult business, and he was aware she was going to meet clients Thursday night, and I assume we're talking about adult business clients.
Paige maintains a profile on an adult escort website.
NaughtyNightlife.com is a website where you can arrange what appeared to me to be sexual encounters. They advertised everything from threesomes to partner swapping, erotic massage. Paige tried to make her profile look a little more high class than some of the things on Naughty Nightlife. Some of them are pretty raunchy. Paige's picture was just a torso shot, and she was dressed. She advertised herself as filet mignon as opposed to chopped meat.
Investigators are aware that the nature of this business may have put Paige's life in jeopardy.
That brings another level of complexity. But nevertheless, it was learned early on, and it begins to broaden the scope of what we're looking at.
As with Paige's other jobs, she is well organized in her escort business.
Paige advertised that she would be available for in-call or out-call, which I believe means that she would go to their homes, hotel rooms, or she would bring them to her office.
Paige has been renting this office since March 2006, but no one in the building has any idea of what actually goes on in this room.
The landlord thought that she ran an acupuncture office. That's what she had told him, and never had any reason to suspect anything different. One of the odd things that some of the other people in the building had noticed was that in her office she had a pincushion with needles stuck in it. And that's not the way acupuncturists operate. I mean, a true acupuncturist has needles that are sterilized and they're in paper. That just was kind of almost a joke. Other people in Paige's office building saw men coming and going, sometimes as many as 4, men in one evening, and they wondered about that. Paige would be dressed in kind of skimpy clothes and high heels. She didn't look like she was in the healthcare providing field, but none of them really suspected what was actually going on.
Paige lists her services as escort, erotic massage, private dancer, and available for groups and parties. But just how far Paige may have gone is unclear.
From reading the critiques on Naughty Nightlife for Paige, I got the sense that there was more happening than massage. They did mention that the extras cost them more, but they were well worth it. I think maybe Paige drew a line, no sexual intercourse. I mean, it wasn't prostitution per se.
Whatever line of work Paige is in, the job of the police is the same.
It's not our place to make a judgment about the activity. It's our place to investigate the facts and find out what happened.
And ultimately, her friends believe that Paige is doing this work because it provides quick and easy money, all in an effort to support her children.
Paige needed to make ends meet. She told me that a friend of hers had taught her how to give massages. And so we felt like, well, of course, Paige is just giving massages, perhaps not fully clothed or something. But who's to say you can't do that? And we knew the escort side, perhaps dancing at parties. If it happens to be dancing with very little clothes on, Paige didn't have a problem with that. She was very comfortable with herself, with her body, and that's very different than actually having sex with someone.
When first husband Ron Beigler calls the police on June 30th, Paige has been missing for 36 hours. Their first step is to account for where Paige has been during all of that lost time. Her business practices turn out to be a boon for investigators.
We discovered that there were 2 cell phones, one for her and one for her business, and we were able to get information from both telephones.
While Paige's family is in the dark about her adult business, for at least some close friends, Paige's life is an open book.
She never hid anything. She was very open, and I don't think she had anything to hide. For her, it was strictly a business deal.
This isn't the first time that Paige got involved in adult entertainment.
She was stripping in a Denver club, the Mile High Saloon, and her first husband knew about that. I heard from friends and family members that he was not thrilled about her stripping.
In addition to questions about parenthood, Paige's stripping may have caused tension in the marriage. The couple divorce in 1997, while Paige is still dancing at the Mile High Saloon. And it is there that she meets her second husband. But Paige's next marriage will come with its own complications.
Rob Dixon met Paige while she was dancing at the Mile High Saloon in Denver. They hit it off and were married.
Paige's friends explain that she is someone who goes out and gets what she wants. In 1997, she wants Rob Dixon and all the financial security he offers.
When Paige met Rob, he came from a very wealthy family. So in part, she was attracted to that because she could be the stay-at-home mom.
Rob Dixon's family had made a fortune during the 90s.
Rob Dixon's father was one of the pioneers of the cell phone industry and made some money.
In 1996, Rob sets up a foundation that gives millions of dollars to fire departments in Colorado.
Rob Dixon is a trained paramedic. That's what he likes to do. He likes to help people in their time of need. Rob and his father began a foundation, the whole purpose of which was to supply needed equipment to fire departments, paramedics on the western slope of Colorado.
Rob entrusts his money to an investor he meets in a strip club, and for a while, returns are good. The couple moves to Grand Junction in 1998 and starts having children the same year. Rob chooses to make no secret of his money.
This is a town where if you want to fit in, you might get a pickup truck or an SUV. Rob at one time had expensive Porsches. He had Lexus, Jaguars, Range Rovers, a lemon yellow Ferrari.
I got the sense that Rob liked attention and his nice home and his 9 cars. People were very, very impressed.
By this time in 2001, Paige and Rob have 3 children. It seems they have it all. Then, after September 11th, Rob Dixon's finances take a serious plunge, and all this financial turmoil takes its toll on the family.
Over time, I started noticing that I really never saw him. At Paige's house, you would expect Rob to be out mingling. These are basically Paige's closest friends. And he would go in the bedroom and close the door. Just avoidance. It set up a really awkward tension. That was really upsetting to her, that he'd make no point of being a part of anything that she was doing.
Frank Bergfeld believes the anxiety surrounding the loss of Rob's fortune changes him for the worse.
I think it was devastating. I think people that beg for, look at me, aren't I smart? To be in the paper day in and day out, having your bad decisions detailed to the community at large, to someone who had been up there with an ego, it's a long plunge down.
As the years pass, Paige's family and friends grow more concerned about her relationship with Rob.
Paige made a 911 call in 2004.
My husband and I were in a fight, and he was supposed to watch my children while I went to work. He didn't seem to be okay, so I said that I was just going to take the children with me. But he wanted the children to stay with him, and he said that I would come home and find them all murdered.
By the time the police got there, it had all been resolved, and there was no arrest.
Rob's lawyer says that no arrest was made for good reason. Rob Dixon never threatened to kill the children. Rob and his lawyer believe she made the call for ulterior reasons.
The first time Paige called 911, she made an accusation that Rob Dixon was going to kill the children. That had no basis in truth. The police came to the scene. There was nothing inappropriate going on. Nobody was charged. Rob was befuddled. He had no understanding as to what motivated Paige to make a false accusation about him. But fortunately for Mr. Dixon, it was soon very clear he had done nothing wrong and had no bad intentions. And it may have been the start of her campaign to get Rob Dixon out of the house.
1 year later, in 2005, Paige makes another 911 call.
Paige called 911 and said that Rob Dixon had slapped her and shoved her while she was holding their youngest child. And at that time, he was arrested for domestic violence. According to the court files, Paige said that he had accused her of being a whore because she had clothing in her car that indicated to him that she was going out to do topless massage. Rob said that she had told him that she was having to do that again because they were running out of money.
Rob's lawyer insists that Rob always dutifully supported his wife and family. Rob is arrested on third-degree assault, misdemeanor child abuse, and domestic violence charges.
Rob pleaded guilty to harassment. It was a plea bargain, and he had to go to anger management classes.
In exchange for this plea, the charges are eventually dropped.
Paige Dixon claimed that Rob had struck her and the child. The problem was there were no signs of any injury. What actually happened is that Rob found that she was doing topless massages. That's not really what you want the mother of your children and your wife to be doing. According to Rob, he never laid a hand on her, and he and I believe that that second call was manipulation by Paige. She was done with him.
Rob's lawyer says this is an elaborate ruse by Paige to cast herself as the better parent so she can win custody of the children if they divorce. 2 days after Paige's 911 call, Rob Dixon declares bankruptcy. His Colorado EMT Foundation is unable to pay for equipment it has donated, and taxpayers are forced to pick up the tab.
Rob said that eventually he lost over $10 million. I would think it was more than that.
Not surprisingly, public opinion turns against him.
I would have to say that Rob Dixon came to town as a hero. He was a godsend, and he was Santa Claus. And by the time he left, he was an awful scoundrel because a lot of the places that he had donated equipment to, it had been repossessed. He had just leased it and then didn't make the payments. And then after he got involved in a fire district here, he invested $3.2 million of their money in a shifty internet company in New York, and that money was lost.
According to her loved ones, Paige and her children are feeling the effects of Rob's reversal of fortune.
The relationship certainly started having cracks and coming apart. As the years went by, we see Rob as a sort of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. When they were first married, we knew virtually 100% good Rob. At the end of it all, it was virtually 100% bad Rob. I actually set up a bank account for Paige that was joint, and the purpose was that if she felt for any reason she needed to get away, she'd have enough money to do it.
Paige's friends never doubt for a minute that her fear of ex-husband Rob Dixon is very real.
One day we were at her house and there was no door on part of the cabinet, and so I asked Paige what that was all about. The oldest son was in trouble and Rob was angry with him, and so he was hiding in that cabinet from his dad. And Rob broke the door on that side of the cabinet when he was pulling the child out of there.
Rob's lawyer explains that Rob did break this cabinet door, but by accident. The door simply came off its hinges, and no child was involved.
It just gives me chills.
Rob starts looking for work out of state, and friends raise the possibility of divorce with Paige.
Rob was brokenhearted, but he's also a bright guy, and it seemed pretty obvious that his marriage with Paige was over. If she was going to be involved in adult services, he was not going to be around.
Paige finally accepts the idea that they should divorce.
That's where I saw her sad a lot more, because her dream was falling apart. She didn't have, the traditional family and the white picket fence. It was all crumbling, and that was very hard for her.
Rob Dixon leaves Colorado, eventually settling on the East Coast. But even after the divorce is final, Paige is documenting her fears about Rob on a website dedicated to pampered chef consultants.
I've looked at the website, and it seems to also be a support group for these kinds of women. They get on and they tell about themselves. And I know that Paige did that. She talked a little bit about her divorce and her problems with her former husband. Paige said that she was afraid of him. One post even said that the kids were afraid that he would come and kill her.
Were Paige's fears real? And was Rob Dixon somehow involved in her disappearance? Paige's friends say that she has told them of her fear of Rob, so when Paige goes missing, this is one of the first things friends mention to police.
I definitely told the police I was concerned about Rob and that he might be a threat.
In any investigation, one of the first things you're going to look at is existing relationships. In this case, Paige Burfield had 2 ex-husbands. In the case of Rob Dixon, they had a colorful relationship, and it was one that was not without strife. And there were 911 calls, and there was even a prior domestic violence arrest. And it piqued our interest with regards to trying to understand, did they have enough of a rocky relationship that created the motivation to try to harm Paige?
Could Rob's temper have driven him to the ultimate revenge?
It did not change the facts with regards to where we believe Rob Dixon was during the time of her disappearance and what he was doing at the time.
According to Rob, he was at home in Pennsylvania when Paige's family called, completely unaware that Paige had disappeared.
Rob Dixon was worried that something had happened to her, so he packed all his gear and headed for Colorado.
Meanwhile, the sheriff's office is beginning their search for Paige. They start close to home.
In any case like this, you want to do a cursory search of, the house. One of the things that helped us to gain focus was the lack of things that we saw. We didn't see somebody who came home and packed.
About 9:30 that night, a volunteer arrived with her bloodhounds. They went around the house, inside, outside, and then I was told they took them beyond to the desert.
But nothing concrete is found.
Sunday, they were going to go up in an airplane looking for her car.
While searching for her car, investigators are also trying to track down Paige's last moves.
Cell phone records and voicemail were a big clue in this investigation that gives us an idea of who she may have intended to meet with and who, perhaps wanted to meet with her. We were able to identify individuals and contact them and try to learn their whereabouts and learn their relationship to her.
3 days after her disappearance, there is a huge development. Paige's car is found in flames.
vehicle then was reported to us on Sunday, found burning in an industrial area of Grand Junction, and it didn't take much to determine that it was probably set deliberately. It's a huge red flag. Now there's criminal behavior involved with it, and it causes you to think about foul play, and that there's somebody that appears to be attempting to cover up a connection.
If I didn't know before, I knew that point. We have a serious problem here. She is in real bad spot.
It was probably the thing that made me really start freaking out and thinking that something truly awful had happened.
Finding Paige's car tells police that she made it back to Grand Junction from Eagle on June 28th.
I found out Paige was missing the Monday morning after she disappeared. My husband called and said, she's missing. And I said, well, where's Rob? That was my first concern after everything she had been saying to me.
Mom's Club has a meeting scheduled for Monday afternoon, and it quickly becomes all about what's happened to Paige. The more they think about whether or not Paige would choose to leave her children, the more worried they get.
We assumed she's dead in one respect, but in another respect said if there's any way for someone to be alive, Paige would find it.
Because of another missing persons case in the Grand Junction area, a local search group had sprung up called the Abby and Jennifer Recovery Foundation. On July 14th, at 6 a.m., Paige's loved ones joined this group in a massive effort to find any sign of Paige.
This is a huge county. It's over 3,300 square miles. 74% of it's public land. It's from High Mountain Meadows all the way to Red Rock Canyon country that the Colorado River runs through. There's literally a million places to hide somebody and a million places to go where you have privacy to do things that bad people sometimes do. It's wide open.
I think the first day we had in the neighborhood of 150 people. You just can't believe how hot it was. When you're looking at 115 degrees, it is very uncomfortable. I just can't believe how much people will give of themselves when they see someone in a tight spot. There's a park downtown in which homeless people gather. And I took some of the flyers. I took a box of waters. There wasn't a lot of thank yous. And then I said, I need your help. Those guys pulled around me like a magnet, and they couldn't have been more helpful. They took all my flyers.
The very next day, there is another huge find.
There were some items found in an area approximately 15 miles away from where the vehicle was found on a state highway.
It was exciting and hopeful at the same time that it was terrifying and sad.
They found items from Paige's purse, from her billfold. They found a Blockbuster rental card, her checkbook, cards, normal things people have in their wallet. The items were found on the opposite side of town from where her house is, the opposite side of town from where she would have come into town from Eagle. I think the police looked at the items that they found as possibly kind of a breadcrumb thing, that possibly she might have thrown them out of a car. That had them looking then south of Grand Junction along the river. And they had divers, they had boats. The other theory was that possibly they'd been thrown out by someone as a way to divert them.
However these items got there, the volunteers have to keep searching.
You have to be prepared that you're trying to find a dead person is really what we were searching for ultimately. If she was alive, we weren't going to find her on our searches.
If anything is found, it cannot be publicized for fear it could taint a future trial.
You had to flag anything you thought might be related to her, and that could mean a lot of flags.
Volunteers search throughout the summer.
You don't develop an extreme amount of confidence that you've eliminated all the areas. What you do is develop confidence that you're doing everything you can and moving on to other areas.
But Paige is not found. Despite her friends' concerns, after interviewing Paige's ex-husband Rob Dixon and checking his alibis, police determined that he was not involved. And he is officially cleared.
At this point, I've never uncovered anything that would suggest that Rob Dixon has anything to do with Paige Bergfeld's disappearance.
The Mesa County Sheriff's Department focused on the men in Paige's life, as they should have. But they soon came to the conclusion that neither man could have been involved in Paige's disappearance.
This only makes cops work harder to find a suspect.
We even brought in canines with specific experience in cold trails or cold tracks to try to determine if we could link anything to the car.
These cold case canines sniff out the area where Paige's car was found and lead investigators directly to the door of a local business. A man is about to be named a person of interest. Nearly a month after Paige Bergfeld goes missing, investigators name a person of interest. While much of the evidence must be kept secret in case of a trial, the public learns that canines led straight to this man's place of business.
The canines were useful in tying the car to the business. As a result of that, we're left with Lester Ralph Jones as a person of interest in this investigation to us.
There is talk in the town that Lester Jones and Paige know each other, and that he may be a client whom she refused to meet.
I knew that she knew him. She had talked about her mechanic, Lester. I got the impression that he was very fixated on her.
As best as I can tell, Paige and Jones knew one another, and Paige found Jones repulsive and tried to avoid him.
My husband ended up talking to someone who had a friend who had hired Paige. He said she gives great massages, and he had actually approached her about a full-service massage, and she refused. She said, no, I give massages and that's that. He was like, I'll pay you really well. And she absolutely wouldn't go.
Barbara wonders if perhaps, unlike this friend of a friend, Lester Jones couldn't take no for an answer.
He is big, 6'6", 280. He served time in prison for an act of violence with respect to his ex-wife.
According to Delta County Sheriff's records, in 1999, Jones chased his estranged wife up a mountain road in his car, fast enough to set off her airbags. Her friend jumped out of the car and started running away, and Jones fired a gun at him. The bullets went through his hat.
Mr. Jones was an RV mechanic here in Grand Junction after he had served 3 years of a 5-year prison sentence for domestic violence-related crimes.
Although Jones was imprisoned for assault with a deadly weapon, attempted second-degree kidnapping, and the use of a deadly weapon, Paige's loved ones are not convinced that he is the one.
I see him having a low motive, and I see others that have a high degree of motive.
I know investigators searched Mr. Jones' house at least twice. They were particularly interested in a truck liner. They said they took several bags of things out of the house. They did a lot of searching, but the investigators would never say what they found there or didn't find. And they would also never confirm that they searched his place of business. But I would assume that they did because the dog led over there.
It really doesn't make any sense that someone would go to all the trouble of trying to hide a murder and then put the victim's car in the parking lot next to where they work.
Well, I've never been able to let go of the idea that Rob Dixon was somehow involved in this. He was the only person she mentioned being afraid of.
In the face of intense allegations from Paige's close friends, Rob's lawyer maintains these claims are ludicrous.
Rob Dixon talked with the investigators without a lawyer being present. He said he had nothing to hide. He passed a polygraph with flying colors, so it was pretty clear he could not have been involved in her disappearance at all.
The biggest thing is we need to find Paige. We want to find Paige.
Apparently, Jones and Rob had a connection through their jobs. The two of them had worked for the same fire district, so potentially they stayed in touch. Rob would know that Ralph has a violent background. What better person to set up to knock off your ex-wife?
Neither Rob or I had ever heard of Lester Jones. Jones and Dixon have never met. Jones and Dixon have never spoken. The claim that Lester Jones was being manipulated by Rob Dixon is hogwash, and why anyone would believe that story is beyond us.
In spite of Page's friend's suspicions and an alleged connection to Lester Jones, the sheriff's office still says Rob Dixon is not a suspect in this case. Neither Lester Jones nor his lawyer have ever made a public statement, and Jones has never been arrested or charged in connection with this case. The open-ended nature of this case leaves friends and family desperate for answers.
Our investigation has not uncovered anything that Page is still alive. Page has met with foul play, and we believe that it was likely surrounding her adult entertainment business, and we remain open to other possibilities as well, and won't rule anything out, but that is the focus that we have based on the facts as we know them. It's still a very complex and difficult case, but we're hopeful that something comes up that causes this case to get its day in court.
Certainly as bad as it is and how you fall into the depths of depression and despair, there's also an element of anger. Who is it out there that thinks for whatever purpose they have for themselves that they can take away from my grandchildren their mother, to take away this person's goals, their aspirations, to take away this great smile? Who is this person? What kind of a human being is this? One of the investigators told me, these kind of cases take 6, sometimes even 20 years to solve. I responded to this guy, you may punch out at night to go eat dinner, but this never leaves me, and it never will.
Maura Murray disappeared on Monday, February 9th, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Maura Murray's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her.
I thought everything was okay.
Maura Murray is a 21-year-old college student. It seems like she has everything going for her.
They were talking of getting married.
She was on the dean's list.
But the mysterious events surrounding the days before her disappearance puzzle those who know and love her.
I don't have the slightest idea what was in her mind.
She leaves her dorm room in Massachusetts and drives to the next state. Nobody knows where she is headed.
I don't know why she came to New Hampshire. I don't know. I'd be guessing the same with everybody else.
When her car veers off this dark and windy highway, she seems to disappear into thin air.
Our Mara is gone. It was like a nightmare.
It's Saturday morning, February 7th, 2004. Fred Murray is driving to pick his daughter Maura up from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. Little does he know that in only 3 days, she will disappear.
When Maura got to UMass, I'd go up there once a month or so. In fact, the weekend, last weekend I saw her, I was up at UMass and we went searching to find a car. So get her a car, you know, to go to do her nursing clinical trips and stuff like that.
21-year-old Maura Murray has juggled a busy college schedule, running track and cross country, and working 2 part-time jobs. Besides studying, she must do work for her nursing degree that requires long drives from campus.
Now, Maura had a car with her in Amherst, but the car was falling apart. It was really time for her to get a new car.
Maura's rundown car will figure prominently in her disappearance 3 days later.
And we had one picked out, and we're going to go up the next weekend and get it. But that didn't happen. It would have been safe. I wish I had bought it that weekend.
According According to Fred Murray and Mara's friends at the time at UMass, it seemed to be a pretty normal weekend. Her father was visiting. Everything seemed fine.
And that night in Amherst, we went to the Amherst Brew Pub and had supper. Whenever we went to some place, especially if it's a college town or something like that, if we could find a brew pub, we would go to it, you know.
But the events of that weekend would create a mystery even her closest friends can't explain.
Mara and I grew up in a small town called Hanson, Massachusetts.
Particularly close to her father.
The first basketball team Mara and I played on, our dads were both coaches. Mara and her dad were very close growing up. She lived with her mom, but her dad was here picking her up for practices, bringing her to games.
Her parents divorced when she was 6 years old, and she remained living with her mother, but she maintained a very close relationship with her father.
It seemed like the last weekend Mara and her dad had spent together was pretty typical of their relationship.
After enjoying their brewhouse dinner that Saturday night, Fred lets Maura borrow his new car. She drops him off at his motel. Then, the weekend takes a sudden and unexpected turn.
Sunday morning, Mara woke me up. She had come back, you know, during the night and told me that she had had an accident in my car.
She was involved in an accident in Hadley, Mass, where she went off the road and struck a set of guardrails. She was driving her father's new car at the time and did about $10,000 worth of damage.
Well, Mara was upset, and it haunts me, but, you know, I think she felt she let her father down.
At 4:49 a.m. Sunday morning, a distraught Maura calls her long-distance boyfriend, Billy Rausch, who is stationed in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Billy later shares the conversation with his mother, Sharon.
So she calls Billy, and he talked with her. He calmed her down. And then he promised her that he would call her back later in the day.
Maura and Billy have been dating since 2001. They met while both were attending West Point.
From the moment I met her, I knew that she loved my son, you know, and of course that endeared her to me.
When Maura decided to transfer from West Point to UMass, Billy and Maura continued their relationship, spending many holidays and summers with Billy's family.
By the time that she was here over the holidays in 2003 and early 2004, they shared that, you know, they were talking of getting married.
I think Mara looked at Sharon as if she was a second mom. She always went out there, and we knew that she was excited to go.
To describe Mara as a challenge, I don't want to say she's complex, but she was so multifaceted, you know? She could be serious, she could be so funny and witty. She always had this little soft giggle, and she was very soft-spoken, but she was fun-loving. She loved life, she loved to laugh.
The next day, when Fred Murray sees his daughter, she's still upset about the accident.
I drove her back to the dorm. I could see she was still upset. I told her it would be all right. It was going to be covered. It would be okay, you know? And she went into the dorm, and that's the last I ever saw of her, which will haunt me forever.
A few hours later, at 11:26 p.m., Maura speaks on the phone with her father one final time.
Checked on my insurance. I called her back, said, you know, we're okay, the insurance will be taken care of, so I'm not going to be out a lot of money. I said, you're going to have to make out accident reports, probably in triplicate. So get the 3 forms from the police station or wherever you have to get them, and call me tomorrow night, you know, 8 o'clock.
But Maura's call to her father will never take place, and her actions will surprise everyone who knows her.
There was no death in the family. She did lie.
In the weekend before,
the car would get fixed, and my insurance.
She got back on her computer on the afternoon of the night, and during the course of a couple hours, searched several sites to include getting directions from Amherst, Mass. to the Burlington, Vermont area.
Here she was looking for different directions up to New Hampshire and I think onto Burlington, Vermont. I mean, it would seem a little strange, especially since classes had just started.
No one knows what Maura was planning the day before she disappears, but her last cell phone calls leave clues.
We have Maura's cell phone records because her cell phone was an additional line to Billy's cell phone. So, you know, Billy not only gave her a phone for Christmas, he paid the monthly bill. When his bill came, then, you know, we automatically saw all the calls that she made.
At 12:55 p.m. Monday, February 9th, 2004, Maura calls the owner of a Bartlett, New Hampshire condo rental. Her father recognizes the town. It's a place Maura knew well.
She was going to Bartlett. There's no question. She was going to Bartlett, and that's what she knows. She's familiar with. She stayed in every place in Bartlett. She can get a room there, and even if she can't, she knows other places. Maura has been coming up here since she was born.
Maura grew up every summer and parts of winters and springs and falls going all up through New Hampshire. She's hiked so many of those mountains up there with her dad.
They wanted to do the highest mountains as best they could, and she loved hiking.
Maura's friends know her to be very athletic, excelling at many sports.
Maura played just about every sport possible growing up. Maura and I were always on the same teams, and we were captains of the cross-country team senior year. But she was always the one leading the pack and winning most of just about all of the races, and including doing top finishes in the state.
She was recruited to West Point for her running ability.
After transferring from West Point, she attended the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where she ran track and cross country. Back at her dorm room that February afternoon, just hours before her disappearance, Maura sends an email to her boyfriend.
He did receive an email from her that day, around 1 or 1:30, and in that email, she told him that she loved him and that she was sorry she hadn't returned his messages from the day before. She hadn't felt like talking to much of anyone.
Whatever Maura's state of mind is, she makes a number of phone calls that afternoon.
Maura made another phone call to 1-800-GO-STOW, which is a reservation phone line for hotels in the Stowe, Vermont area. But research shows that at the time that Maura called, the line was actually out of order. So Maura could listen to listings for different hotels, but she could not actually make a reservation on this line. But that just shows that Maura, again, was looking for a place to stay in the Vermont, New Hampshire area.
Then, 13 minutes after phoning the Go Stowe hotline, Maura calls her boyfriend, but gets his voicemail.
She didn't say much other than promising to call him. Sorry she missed him.
Maura hasn't told anyone she's thinking about leaving town. She finally shares her plans, but it's not with anybody close to her.
Maura had sent an email to her nursing professors. I don't know word for word, but in it she told them that she needed to be away for a week due to a death in the family.
Her friends know there has been no death in Maura's family.
We thought it was a little bizarre when we first heard that Maura had sent an email to professors saying, "There's a death in the family, I have to take off for a week."
Not really like her, but if something was going on, she did need to get away, then kind of explains it. Why she didn't call one of us, I don't know. I mean, maybe we could have helped her out. Figured something out together.
She did lie, but, you know, Maura was not a liar.
Around 3:30, we assume Maura got into her car at UMass Amherst and left the campus. Her first stop was to an ATM machine where she withdrew $280. That pretty much depleted Mara's account with that bank. Mara then stopped at a local liquor store. At the liquor store, Mara bought a bottle of Kahlua, a bottle of Bailey's, a bottle of vodka, and a box of red wine.
Mora's stop to the liquor store is known because the receipt of what she purchases is later found in her wrecked car.
Kahlua, Bailey's, and vodka are known for making a White Russian. No one understands why Mara bought such a large quantity of alcohol for if she was traveling alone.
There was surveillance camera at the ATM, so we could see still photographs where she walked up to the ATM, withdrew the money, and there didn't appear to be anybody in the background or anywhere that we could see from the camera photos.
It's 4:37 p.m., and phone records show Mora checks her voicemail. This is the last known call from Mora's cell phone. Presumably, at this point in the afternoon, she's now driving towards New Hampshire.
She had an extremely adventurous sense of spirit. When we first heard that Mara had taken off and gone up to New Hampshire, it seemed a little odd to us, but not totally, because I remember a day in high school that she decided she just wanted to go off and do something different, so she hopped on the train herself, went to Boston, didn't necessarily tell us, but by the end of the day she was back after all of us had been spending the whole day trying to track her down.
The next day, Mora's father will hear the worst news of his life.
Your daughter's missing. She's in an accident. The police don't seem to know where she is.
It's Monday afternoon, February 9th, 2004. Momentarily, this 21-year-old nursing student will go missing. It seems she's planning a getaway, but connecting the clues is complicated.
As to why Mara left, I don't know. In my position as father, you would think that maybe there would have been something said, but I have no hint. I thought everything was okay, you know?
Some think perhaps Mora is not doing well at school, and that's why she's leaving.
I wasn't aware of any stuff like school troubles. She was on the dean's list in a very difficult program, a nursing program. Hard to get in, hard to do well in.
When it came to academics, she was always very serious and one of the top members of our class by the time we all graduated.
The recipients this year are the 5 top-ranking students in the senior class. The awards are $400 to Mora Murray.
I think everybody felt that she was doing okay at school, but there also were some issues, I think, that were causing her great stress in her private life.
Around 5 p.m., Monday, February 9th, this Dean's List student is on the road, driving a rundown car hours away from her dorm, without telling anybody where she is going.
I knew she was having car trouble. We had gotten her a AAA membership with the long-distance towing because we were concerned about her.
It was pretty cold. The road was slippery.
Fred Murray is tracing his daughter's last known steps.
She went west on, I would say, what is it, 116 into Route 91, which we're on now.
She's driving away from her UMass Amherst dorm towards New Hampshire.
She's going to take this right down until she finds 112 East. This is what she was looking for. I wish she had gone straight.
And after traveling over 140 miles...
Mara is not familiar with this area.
Around 7:30 p.m., her car veers off the road.
Mara came around the corner, and so the car wasn't running properly. It impacted right down here. There was a big snowbank here. It's so dark here. If you're looking in this direction, you can't see your hand in front of your face.
This is Maura's second car accident in 3 days. A school bus driver stops to help her.
I just asked her how she was. She said she was shaken up. I couldn't see any blood on her face. And she was shaking like this. I says, okay, I'm going to go call the police.
What the bus driver told us, she didn't appear to be hurt. He offered to call the police for assistance, and she really asked him not to. She said that she had called AAA, but it being in the location of the mountains, he also knew that there was no cell phone coverage there. So he was quite convinced that she hadn't been able to make that call. So he went home, which was a short distance down the road, and called the local police department.
Around 10 minutes later, at 7:45 p.m., police arrive at the accident scene, looking for any trace of the driver.
The police officer at the scene noticed that the windshield was broken in front of where the driver would be seated. The airbags had gone off. There was damage to the front end of the vehicle. When he got there, he found that there was nobody with the vehicle.
In the blink of an eye, this vivacious, athletic young co-ed disappears.
He noticed that there was a box of wine, like a 5-liter box of wine, behind the driver's side seat. He could see that through the window. He noticed in the snow what appeared to be something pink that had been poured into the snow. Subsequently, when they removed the vehicle, he found a Coke bottle, and it smelled like there had been an alcoholic beverage in that bottle.
I spoke with the one witness that actually talked to Maura Murray that night at the accident scene. That witness says that Maura appeared a bit shook up, but she did not appear intoxicated.
There didn't appear to be any evidence at the scene which would indicate anything other than she had left the scene under her own power. There wasn't any evidence of a struggle of any kind. The vehicle was locked.
The police officer at the scene of the accident searches the surrounding area. Maura is nowhere to be found.
Well, the initial accident investigation, led the police officers to believe that this was simply a case of someone who had been involved in a motor vehicle accident and did not wish to, at least initially that night, have contact with the police.
The next day, police speak on the phone with Maura's family.
As a result of those conversations, they then became concerned that Maura might be depressed. Her father described it, that she was depressed in having crashed his car on Saturday night.
Fred Murray remembers receiving the shocking and mystifying news.
The way I felt was just like the world just stopped. Your daughter's missing. She's in an accident. She's in the woods, way up, and not in New Hampshire. The police don't seem to know where she is. I couldn't, I wanted to get up here immediately.
The next morning, Maura's boyfriend receives a strange voicemail message.
The message basically, in and of itself, was just a woman breathing and then possibly a whimper or some sort of noise at the end, which we believe to be her.
I don't know why she came to New Hampshire. I don't know. I'd be guessing the same with everybody else.
It's Wednesday, February 11th, 2004. Fred Murray has just driven all night from his work in Bridgeport, Connecticut, after hearing his daughter's car has been abandoned, far away from her dorm room, and she is nowhere to be found.
I get up here at daybreak, to join the search.
Maura's mother, Lori, is living a mother's worst nightmare. She's unable to leave her home in Hanson, Massachusetts to join the search due to a fractured ankle.
Eventually, the rest of my family showed up, and Bill Roush, Maura's boyfriend, and his mother and father, Bill and Sharon, showed up.
But during his trip from Fort Sill, Oklahoma to New Hampshire, Maura's boyfriend, Billy, receives a mysterious voice message on his cell phone.
Billy called frantic around 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning. And he says, Mom, he said, while I was going through security, I missed a call. And he said, I'm sure it was Mara.
The message basically, in and of itself, was just a woman breathing and then possibly a whimper or some sort of noise at the end, which we believe to be her.
He said there was some, really soft sobbing and shivering sounds and sniffing. And he said, I don't know what to do. He said, I called it back, and it says it's a prepaid calling card.
They have hope the call is from Maura, since Sharon knows Maura uses prepaid calling cards.
Before Mara had her cell phone, she called Billy with prepaid calling card. And when Mara was here for Thanksgiving in 2003, I gave her 2 prepaid calling cards. And so that's always, added to our belief that it's very likely that Mara made that very unusual call that Billy received that morning.
Once in New Hampshire, the family frantically searches for Maura.
So we found a place to stay locally, and we started setting up a kind of, they had asked me, I'd have given them something that she used all the time, like running gear or something like that, but I don't know, maybe
leads to speculation that Maura may have gotten into a passing vehicle.
We did an intensive search of the crash scene area for evidence that she may have walked into the woods. Nothing like that was uncovered. Do police make mistakes? Do we miss things? Absolutely. We just want to make sure we're doing...
And speak with his parents.
After we arrived in Haverhill on Wednesday, Billy was questioned extensively. They give us a press release.
Maura is described as endangered and possibly suicidal.
Well, in any press release, you want to let the public know, especially if you're looking for help. So you want to give those details so that someone who lives in the area or wherever will just be on the lookout for something out of the ordinary. So that information was included in the early press releases that she might be depressed and she may have come up here to harm herself.
So they proceed to tell us that there's no evidence of foul play. Maura is 21 years old. She is an adult. She has the right and the privilege to go missing of her own choice. We're thinking, oh, this can't be. She's gone. That's our foul play. Our Maura is gone.
And while her family and friends are trying not to lose hope,
Maura's loved ones are interviewed by the...
She was away. She had every intent on maintaining her, her exercise regimen.
Also found in Maura's car was a book titled Not Without Peril. It was a book chronicling different hikers that had gone into the presidential range of New Hampshire's mountains, and they either never returned or they were badly injured.
Book Not Without Peril was in Maura's car because Maura and I climbed Mount Washington, and when you read the book, it mentions all these different trails and all the different adventures, some ending happily, some ending in death. People have frozen to death up there. But for the most part, it's uplifting.
Some people speculate, why was Maura reading this particular book? A book about hikers that go into the mountains and never return. But others say this was just one of Maura's favorite books.
With nothing to go on but hope, Maura's family is determined to continue looking for her. During their search, Maura's sister discovers a disturbing potential clue.
Women's underwear were found right down here, more on top of the ice than buried in it. We turned the underwear into the state police, but never heard another word.
There were some items of clothing that were turned into law enforcement. We did forensic testing on those and were able to determine that they were not, in fact, belonging to Maura.
After weeks of constant searching,
I've searched all down through here.
Devastated and exhausted, Maura's loved ones return home.
I personally search any place that would be significant to her, that would be meaningful, that we went to a lot, that would be special for Maura, but she hadn't been to any of those places.
But witnesses are about to come forward, including one who claims to have seen the young Maura Murray.
The young woman had her arms folded in front of her and seemed to be mouthing the words, "Help me."
In the days and months after that fateful February 9th, 2004, when his daughter disappears from the scene of her one-car accident, Fred Murray hopes for answers, even though there seems to be no leads and no suspects.
Fred, God has just really blessed him and giving him the strength. You know, at his age, he goes up there week after week after week, and he keeps searching the sides of the roads. He keeps searching the woods.
Months after Maura's disappearance, Sharon and Fred decide to do more follow-up, investigating Maura's final cell phone calls themselves.
It wasn't until Fred and I decided in the fall of 2004 that we were going to go back to square one and check some things out that I called these phone numbers.
Hello? I picked up the phone and it was Sharon. She had said that she obtained Maura's cell phone records and that I was one of the last people to speak with her and that she had gone missing.
Linda and her husband own a condo in Bartlett, New Hampshire. And Fred and Maura and Billy had stayed there in late summer of 2003. At the time that I learned this, I went online, and this condo by the Salamonis was the least expensive to rent. So I'm confident that that is why that Maura chose that one.
This 12:55 p.m. call on February 9th, 2004, lasts 3 minutes. Unfortunately, Linda Salamoni is unable to remember more about her conversation with Maura because she is contacted so many months afterwards.
I felt like I might have been able to help at that time if I had just received a phone call. I could have said, yes, she sounded distressed, or no, she was okay, and this is where she was heading, or whatever, any little bit. So then I felt very frustrated because I still, felt I might have been able to help.
One thing Linda is sure of, she didn't rent a condo to Maura that week.
There was no way for her to get in. We would have to give her the keys. We would make sure that we knew who we were renting it to.
Fred Murray is frustrated with the lack of progress in the case.
Fred has also filed a lawsuit against the state police of New Hampshire and the local police of New Hampshire, trying to obtain the records, the documents pertaining to the Maura Murray case.
My only relief would be the FBI coming in or getting the release of the case records myself. And neither one's going to happen because the court system backs up the state police.
Court decisions have ruled that records relating to the case cannot be released to the public, stating it would interfere with future law enforcement proceedings.
At some point, we may get that piece of evidence which says that she was the victim of a crime, and in solving that case, you want to be able to have everything that you've done from the beginning to that point forward admissible in court if you have to go to trial.
To add to the mystery and the frustration, reporter Maribeth Conway says she spoke to a witness who says she actually encountered Maura Murray, looking very distressed.
She saw a young woman with an older man, a man probably in his 60s. The young woman had her arms folded in front of her and seemed to be mouthing the words, "Help me." The woman finally realized what was happening, but before she really had a chance to do anything about it, the young woman and the man left. The woman did not get license plate numbers or any further of a description of this young girl. She swears that this young woman is Maura Murray.
We've had reported sightings of Maura in Rochester, New Hampshire, in Vermont, in other states. We've always determined that it was not, in fact, Mara.
The interesting thing about the Maura Murray case is that there are so many theories still to this day. Maura was possibly suicidal. She was possibly running away. She could also have been kidnapped.
When the press releases came out about her,
Maura went missing. There were many things that were said. You know, one of the things was that, well, you know, Maura has run off with another boyfriend, and Billy, you know, was confronted with this, and he said, "I hope she has. You know, if she is with another young man, then she is safe."
I think we never thought it would go past a few days. We just thought eventually she'd turn up and there'd be answers, and maybe she'd have a great story to tell after the fact. Some adventure happened. Never thought that 4.5 years later, 5 years later, we'd just have more questions than answers. So this is Mara's last email to the group of girls.
Maura's friends feel her last email to them proves she was not planning any sort of long-term getaway.
She writes, "Dane Cook is playing at UMass, and we went to get tickets and it was sold out. I missed out again. But I did some research and he plays in Storrs, Connecticut, February 12th, not too from UMass." She points out that it's February 12th, so it would be 3 days after she actually went missing. So to me, it shows that that's not someone who was trying to take off permanently. She wouldn't just make plans and then completely ditch them in our minds.
We don't really know what happened to Maura, and though we learn more and more all the time, we don't seem to be able to solve this mystery.
To date, we haven't been able to come up with that answer, but it's certainly my hope, and I know the investigators working on this case, that we will one day have the answer for the family. Because I can't imagine what it's like not to know what happened to your daughter.
I think some local dirtbag grabbed her. And she was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
In our minds, one of two things had to have happened to Maura that night. And that was either she succumbed to the elements, which is possible, or someone harmed her. Because we are convinced that with the items that were packed in her car and the fact that there was no note, she was not planning on taking her life.
As the days have turned into months, and the months into years, Maura's closest friends still have trouble accepting the reality of her disappearance.
she's missing everything. I mean, we graduated from college, and she missed it. We don't have any more pictures of her. It's hard.
It's just hard to put into words. It's just one of those things you hear in the news or read about, but you just never assume that something had happened to you or one of your friends. Clearly, it's been 4.5 years and the emotions are still here.
We don't want Maura to be gone. We want her to be out there, starting a new life. But we have to face ourselves in the mirror and deal with what we know, the facts that we know. And now, after, all of this time, it's not just our minds that tell us that something has happened to Maura, it's our hearts too.
However heart-wrenching the answer is, Maura's father refuses to give up searching for his daughter.
I'm going to be up here all the time. I'm going to follow up any lead that a local gives me. I'm trying to do everything I can do. My conscience wouldn't, I wouldn't be able to stand myself if I didn't. I wouldn't be able to look at a picture of Maura if I knew that I wasn't doing everything I could possibly do. And it's just whatever time I have, left, that's what I'm going to do with it. She was my buddy, you know, and I don't have my buddy. I'm just my buddy.
Christopher Hoy disappeared on May 19th, 2022.
It's going to be nearly impossible to find somebody in the Ozarks when they disappear.
I hear a truck start up, and so I run up to the front, and Chris's truck isn't there. And I look down, and his wallet's there and his phone's there. I need to find him. This isn't right. Something's not right.
His family is desperate for answers.
I started going through his email, and there were some emails missing. It was very odd. My husband doesn't delete emails.
The Pulaski County Sheriff's Office does a thorough search of the vehicle. The only clue that's recovered is a cigarette butt. Did he have a relationship we don't know about? A K-9 unit is deployed in this case to try to find a scent trail of Chris, and it does hit on one towards the highway.
That only, in my mind, makes me think that he got picked up. Like he doesn't just disappear out of thin air.
I don't see my husband willingly leaving his children. They need to know where their dad is. They need their dad home. I need my husband home.
The more people who know Christopher's story, the greater the chance of bringing him home. Share on social media. Get the word out. Help find him. Have you seen Christopher Hoy?
My name is Teresa Hoy. My nephew, Christopher James Hoy, went missing May the 19th, 2022 in Dixon, Missouri, and he's still missing. He was born in Peoria, and he grew up there. I think everybody should know Chris. When he was growing up, he was very energetic. When he gets excited about something, you get excited about it. Always kind of laughing. He liked to make people happy. He was a pitcher in the baseball team. He was pretty good. He also had his own paper route. And once he was on his own, he was working at Caterpillar. But any job that controlled him, he really didn't care for after a while. So then he turned around and he wanted to better himself further. He started buying houses and then doing what he loved was fixing them up, working with his hands. He had met a lady, he was crazy about her, and they had 2 children, but then all of a sudden something happened, and I'm not real privy to it. She was nowhere to be found. He went gung-ho and got custody of his 2 kids and started a life, and a fatherhood will change you. And then he met Alicia.
I'm Alicia Hoy. I am Chris's wife. I met Chris at a bar. November 3rd of 2017. I was meeting a friend of mine there, and we were gonna play pool. And Chris is sitting at the bar, and he kind of scoots over, asking me how my day was, you know, what do I do and all that. And we just sit and talk, and we talk a lot. Just about everything under the sun. I might have fallen in love with him that night, you know? His kids lived with him, so I met them pretty early on. He seems like this very sweet, caring father, you know? But he didn't meet my daughter, Zoe, until 4 months later.
We got all you need. Colors, powers, sound effects.
Like the first night we had went over to his house, we sat in the kids' playroom hitting each other with lightsabers. And there were little sticky hands. Like we were throwing them at each other, and then he made fun of me because I got stuck one on the ceiling.
Oh my God.
And Mom was like recording all of it. She had this video and she was just laughing like I've never heard her laugh before.
Dear Lord.
So I had always like prayed for siblings. Like I always wanted a little brother, a little sister, and then I got both. It was really exciting. Like the kids were so cute. It seemed like they were just immediately my siblings. I love them. And I didn't really know how to feel about having a dad, but I was also super excited about it. And he was just super open. Like, he would try to help me whenever possible. It means a lot because I never thought I would have a dad, and he just jumped in.
It was April of 2019 is when we found out we were pregnant. And we had already at that point set a date for the wedding.
Recording? Yeah. We're gathered here today to celebrate one of life's greatest moments.
And we just had a small backyard ceremony with just the kids, and my cousin officiated.
With this ring, I be wed.
But I couldn't ask for anything more than that. Chris was very excited. He's just hoping for another boy, and he did not get that. But he loves all his kids, and he was ecstatic to have another one join the family. But when I met Chris, he had some rental properties in Peoria, and then he had Airbnbs. So we decided we would grow the rental properties. You know, passive income is a great thing. The Airbnb business was booming then, so we were making decent money until COVID hit.
New York, California, Illinois, and Connecticut all ordering non-essential employees to stay home. Those orders cover 75 million people across the United States.
And then it all kind of fell apart. We lost 10 grand a month. So we made that hard decision together. And we decided, we were going to cut our losses. We took what we had and we moved here to Missouri. We wanted to homestead with the gardening, the animals. I always had baby goats in mind, and so did he. It just seemed like the next chapter in our story.
My name's Andrew Sheely. I'm a news reporter with Phelps County Focus in Rolla, Missouri. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had this wave of folks moving into the Ozarks who are trying to live this homestead lifestyle. And Chris was part of this migration that's going on right now.
They wanted to be able to grow their own food, have their own animals. I did think it was cool, and they were doing something together that they both loved doing, and they just had more big plans for the future. I did stay up in Illinois because I had gotten accepted into nursing school. But by the time I had come down for the first time, they had gotten pretty much everything they needed set up. Like, they had pens for the animals. The house was looking a lot better than the pictures. The kids were super excited to show me their rooms and what they were doing, their toys. Like, I had never seen them so proud of what they had made down here. But I noticed something was off about Chris, and I didn't know what it was. And I asked him if he was okay, and he's like, I'm going through it. And he just seemed a little different.
My name is Blake Potter, and Chris is my fiance's stepdad. Obviously, the family was happy. The kids were happy. But moving to Missouri with all of that because of COVID, that puts a stress on everybody, especially with the money loss.
The first couple months we were there, all we did was we settled in. And then I got a job as an ABA therapist part-time. Chris, he's like, I want to homeschool the kids. Like, we were building our dreams. May 19th, 2022. We wake up at 6, we go have our coffee. We do our chores. I take off to work, come home, and there's a severe thunderstorm warning. Our property has a habit of flooding, and we go to the back and we work on preventing from flooding. We're outside and we're soaking wet because of the rain. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna go take a shower. I said, okay, babe. And I go in and I check on the kids, kind of clean up. And I'm standing at the counter when he comes out. And I'm like, hey, baby, I'm gonna go milk the goats. And he goes, okay, baby. And so I go through the basement, to the garage, down to the basement. And I hear a truck start up and leave. And so I run up to the front. And Chris's truck isn't there. And the gate's open. And so I run inside. Where'd your dad go? My son. He said, I don't know. He told me to go to my room. I'm like, that's all he said? He's like, yeah. And he goes, where'd he go? I said, I don't know, bud. You know? And I go out to the porch and I'm kind of mad, you know, because Chris never leaves. He never leaves the house without giving me a kiss, telling me he loves me. Or giving the kids a kiss, telling them that he loves them. You know, it's routine with him. And I sit on the porch and I call Zoe and I'm like, Chris just left. And he left the gate open. He goes, okay, what'd he take? And I look down at the porch table and his wallet's there and his phone's there. And I'm like, well, he didn't take his wallet or his phone. And I just have this nagging feeling that I need to find him. Because this isn't right. Something's not right. So I call a friend of mine over to watch the kids. And I tell her, I'm like, I gotta go check the river. And it was just like instinct. It was a gut feeling, you know, so if he just needs to get away, I feel like he would go and sit at the river, you know, commune with nature, because that's what he likes to do, you know. So I think that's why I'm thinking, look there, I gotta find my husband. And so I go to the river, it's not even a mile from my house. And I see his truck. So I pull off. I smell honeysuckle, and it's his favorite flower. I walk across the road, and I look in the truck. And it's not locked. The key's in the ignition. There's nothing in there. He's not there. And I look around. There's no footprints. So the river, where he parked his truck is actually where we go when we take the kids swimming. I mean, it can get kind of deep.
Given where Chris's truck is found by the Highway 28 bridge by the Gasconade, it looks immediately like an emergency because the Gasconade River is actually one of the deadlier rivers in this area. And the reason why is it's deeper, it's a strong current, and many people have drowned in that. His truck is parked, he's nowhere to be found. Now, given that the river's right there, you have to logically conclude he may have gotten swept up in the river. And the fact that it's swelled up because of a rainstorm makes it all the more dangerous.
So at that moment, every worst case scenario is running through my mind. And I don't know what to think. I don't know what to feel. I don't know what to do. Just everything starts running through my head of what could have possibly happened.
He could be floating downriver, he could be clinging to a log, he could be moments away from drowning. Given the circumstances of Chris's disappearance, time is of the essence, and so the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office responds in full force. But unfortunately at that point it's so dark, the woods are so dense, there's just not a lot you're going to be able to do if you're searching for a person.
So the next morning, by 9 o'clock, the detective comes over and he talks to me. And he goes, okay, I've got a search team. And I was grateful.
I mean, they put together a team of 50 officers because they know if he is in that river, he might be moments from death. The sooner that they can find him, the more likely it is that he's going to be able to survive.
It was approaching 5 o'clock, so I decided I was going to go ahead and call the detective. He's like, we just got back. So they were there 6 hours or so. And he goes, we searched everywhere we could. We took drones out. They searched 3 miles downstream, 3 or 4 miles upstream, just in case. And he said, we didn't find any signs, we didn't find him.
The river is the initial focus. There's an intensive search made of the river. For 5 miles going down the river, they drag it, they search it, they look for clothing. Nothing is found. And 5 miles is key in this case because the Gasconade River is particularly windy. And I mean, it's unlikely that the body is going to float downriver past all of those curves, all of those twists. It would get hung up in branches, it would get stuck in a whirlpool, something. They don't find any clues. Now, if there's no clothing found, if there's no footprints, they're at a dead end.
Doesn't make sense why he would leave. Like, why? When Chris gets down, he usually just bounces right back. The events of the last few years did weigh on him quite a bit. But before he disappeared, he wasn't quite as vibrant of a person. You know, the rental businesses were a flop with COVID. And he would tell me, you know, he was sad that he didn't have this empire, you know, that he was trying to create and to leave for his kids.
Chris pretty much had no business anymore. Like, COVID just shut everything down. Like, I know income dropped a lot and bills were just piling up because they didn't have a whole lot to help pay anymore. I just know after COVID really hit, everything just kind of went to hell.
All the houses were all in foreclosure then. And I know it had hurt him bad. He was a proud guy, a proud man. I'm sure he felt ashamed. There's a lot to homesteading. A lot of people think they can just jump right into it, and you can't. It is a lot of work, a lot of money. They homeschooled their kids. So that, on top of everything else, that's a lot of pressure.
Right before he left, like, he was consistently depressed. Like, it didn't seem, from what Mom said, that he bounced back up, or even from the last time I saw him, like, he had just been depressed.
The week before he disappeared, he did tell me that he didn't want to do this anymore. I'm like, do what? I'm like, babe, if there is anything I can do, you know, I'll do it, you know, whatever you need. And he couldn't pinpoint anything. Communication wasn't all that strong, but I felt like there was stuff on his mind. There was something big in his head, and he wasn't sharing in that week. Whether it was, you know, some outside force or just something, his own thoughts, I could never, and like to this day, I can't pinpoint what was going on. I didn't know what to do. Like, I felt like things had changed, something had changed.
Chris was probably doubting himself for months leading up to his disappearance. He probably had this anxiety building up in himself, this fear, this dread that he was a failure, that he was dragging his family down. And that developed malignantly within himself. He started to doubt whether or not they were going to be able to make it in the Ozarks. And it developed into this overwhelming fear. And what his family was seeing as this sudden break had actually been building up over time for months as Chris started to doubt whether or not the homestead was going to be successful. I think that suicide is something we have to seriously consider in this case.
One of the biggest things I did think at first was suicide, because he left his phone, left his wallet, took his truck down to the river. I don't think that so much anymore, because when he had first met me, I self-harmed a lot. And one of his biggest things that always stuck to me was, do you want me to have to explain to your siblings why they don't have a big sister anymore? And that was always such a big deal to me. I don't think he would ever commit suicide, because he would always fight through whatever was going on.
He wanted to clean out the basement. He wanted to become a notary. He had all these wants, and he had plans. You're not going to make those plans if you're not going to try to follow through. At least my husband never made plans without following through. He was very deliberate in his actions.
I don't think he was suicidal. Depressed, most definitely. But suicidal, no. No, I don't think that one bit.
So the night I found his truck at the river, my thought was not that he went to suicide. And to this day, it's not. It's not my thought. I don't know what happened, but I don't believe it was suicide. The police did search 10 days after. Had conservation out there, highway patrol, people in boats, you know.
A K-9 unit is deployed in this case to try to find a scent trail of Chris, and it does hit on one. In fact, it leads away from the truck and towards the highway. But the scent trail that the dog picks up suddenly stops.
When you have the K-9 unit come out and they get a scent that leads up to the road, and then it just disappears, that only, in my mind, makes me think that he got picked up. Like, he doesn't just disappear out of thin air.
We don't know who would have picked him up. Like, who, if he was picked up, like, who would have picked him up? And why has no one said anything?
The Pulaski County Sheriff's Office does a thorough search of the vehicle, and there's no evidence of foul play. There's no blood, there's no signs of violence or struggle. The only clue that's recovered is a cigarette butt.
And it wasn't a brand that Chris smokes, wasn't a brand that I smoke. So I thought it was odd. Something was amiss.
This cigarette butt is one of the only clues in this case, and it could be significant. I mean, could this be the key to solving this crime? The cigarette butt being found in Chris's truck opens up the possibility that someone else is involved in this case. Who could that be? Was there somebody that wanted to do him harm?
The fact that his scent was tracked to the road, it tells me that he was picked up. I think there's a likelihood of Chris being forced out of the house, of being lured away, if you will, to protect his family.
What we know is the scent trail that the dog picks up leads to the highway and then it suddenly stops. Now we've got to consider two possibilities there. Now it could be that Chris voluntarily got in a vehicle, or maybe Chris was forcibly put in a vehicle, thrown in the bed of a truck, driven off. The way Chris left his house the day he disappeared is a big red flag. He leaves behind his wallet, he leaves behind his cell phone, he leaves his kids behind. He doesn't say where he's going, and he leaves his gate open. Given the way Chris left, homicide is something you've got to consider.
Apparently our area, it's a place where meth heads frequent. And 6 months before he disappeared, woken up at 4 a.m. and the dogs were barking. Chris goes to the front door and he sees someone leaving our property, walking out of our drive. Down the road, gets into a red car. I don't know if they saw that we were building stuff, so maybe, you know, we either had the money or we had materials they could use or, you know, what have you. I don't know. So my husband, he follows them and, you know, has a confrontation, basically says, you know, told them to stay off our land. It's ours. Like, you don't need to be on it. There's no reason for it. We have livestock, we have animals, we have kids.
You know, the Ozarks is very beautiful, but unfortunately it has a massive drug problem. You know, we had a meth boom starting in the 90s that has not let up. And then within the last 10 years, the opioid crisis has really taken over. And that's really been a 1-2 punch for this region. When Chris and Alicia moved to the Ozarks, they encountered this kind of pecking order that exists in the countryside. You know, we have a lot of drug addicts, we have a lot of crime that is associated with that. And whenever somebody moves here, you know, they start looking for, you know, vulnerabilities. You know, is this somebody I can rob? Is this somebody I can burglarize? And indeed, they do encounter some of that. You know, they have to deal with somebody on their property who they don't know. What are they doing there? You know, very likely, you know, that was somebody trying to get a sense of how protective they were. Are they armed? Is this somebody that I can rob? Is this somebody I can burglarize? Do they have valuables? We don't know what it is. And you've got to question, is that a factor in this case?
For like the next 6 or so months, anytime this car would drive by our house, honk, all hours of the night, honking, flipping us off. Like, it was surreal, I guess, you know, because why even be on our property to begin with? One day, Chris had enough. I go outside and my husband is at the fence. And the guy, you're just screaming at each other. And I can't really make out what's being said until I approach. And I hear, "You're lucky you have kids here, otherwise I'd burn your house down." And then he had threatened his life. But then after that, like, all activity stopped.
We know that Chris and Alicia said that nothing had happened recently involving, disputes with neighbors or any type of run-ins with tweakers or people strung out on opioids, but you've got to consider that. Given where they were living in the rural countryside, you've got to consider that perhaps something came up again.
I've lived down there. I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary, really. I don't really know too much about the situation.
I told the detective, and it took him pretty serious. But nothing really came of that.
I don't think he was forced out of the house or out of his vehicle, because knowing the Chris that I know, he would have done anything and everything to get away from anybody and everybody, or anybody trying to come up on his property. He has weapons. He has rifles, handguns, anything and everything that he would do to protect that family.
Given the lack of leads, the lack of clues in this case, anything could have happened to Chris.
June 2nd, I get a call from the detective saying that he's got the kids' mom on the phone and she wants to come get her kids. Chris's ex hasn't been in the picture for over a year and a half now. In Peoria, Chris's ex wanted to see the kids. And at that time, she had told him that she had moved in with a guy. And Chris wanted to know his last name. She refused to tell them. And so every other weekend when it was her weekend, she'd ask for the kids, he'd ask for the guy's last name. She'd always refuse. And he goes, "Until you can tell me a name, you're not going to see the kids." 5 months later, she finally tells him his last name. And he's like, "It's been 5 months. You have not been in their lives. You're going in and out like this is going to do more harm than good." And he goes, "Take me to court." At this point, take me to court. They're in a routine. No. And so she never took him to court. She never stepped foot on our property to see the kids, or neither did her family. And then we moved to Missouri. So when Chris disappeared, she calls me and she's like, "I want my kids. I'm gonna come and get them. I will be there at 8 o'clock in the morning." And I'm like, "That's no good. I'm not gonna disrupt their routine like that." I said, "You realize you're gonna take them. Their dad just went missing. So they are dealing with the trauma from that. And you're gonna take them from the only family they know. You're gonna take them from their sisters. They're the only mom that they know." She says, "I want my kids." And so that night I spend as much time with those kids as I can. And I soak up every minute, and they get a good night's sleep, and they eat breakfast the next morning. And I explain to them what has to happen. At one point, they were screaming at me not to make them go. And so I hand them over. I've never seen either of my kids cry so hard.
I don't really feel comfortable speaking about her too much. I don't have anything really good to say, especially with what's happened after he left.
Unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of information about what this custody dispute was like with his ex-girlfriend. Could that have been a factor in Chris's disappearance? I mean, you have to question.
How did the ex-girlfriend know that Chris went missing? How did she know?
I am not sure how Chris's ex found out that he went missing. When she called me on June 2nd, I asked her how she found out and she wouldn't tell me. She just said she found out. I don't know how she found out, but she did. And we found out on Facebook. She was here in Missouri, an hour away. The weekend he disappeared, mud racing or, four-wheeling or that kind of thing. That's odd. She's so close. And then my husband disappears. There are a lot of unanswered questions there. It makes a person wonder.
Christopher Hoy was last seen May 19th, 2022. If you have any information, please contact the Pulaski County Sheriff's Department at 573-774-6196.
And any disappearance, motive is the central question. I mean, if you're going to factor in possible foul play, who has a motive to do that? When you look at potential suspects, you've got to consider if they have an ex-girlfriend, did they have a bad breakup? When we look at Chris, we know that he did have this past relationship. We know that they had a bad breakup. We know that there was a custody dispute. There's motive there. Now, does that mean that anyone's guilty? No, but that's a factor that you've got to consider in this case. In my opinion, Chris's ex-girlfriend is suspicious.
The detective said that beyond that initial contact, she wouldn't call him back. It bugs me that no one can get any information out of her.
I'd like to get the detective to start questioning her boyfriend. I do believe something is there, and that's where we're at right now.
It is entirely possible that he has just chosen to voluntarily leave home. Maybe he wanted to start a new life again. And since we know that that cigarette is not the brand that Chris smoked, what that opens up is the possibility of there being another person in that truck. You've got to wonder, I mean, who is this person that was smoking this cigarette? Did he have a relationship we don't know about?
I started going through his Facebook, his email conversations, phone calls, and there were some emails missing. It's like up until May 19th, there was no emails. I thought it was very odd that my husband doesn't delete emails, and prior to May 19th, there were no emails, and he used that email regularly. So I thought it was very odd that out of all of this on his phone, it didn't look like he had deleted anything. And Facebook was still there, all his messages seemed to be there, but there were no emails.
The cops couldn't do anything about it because they're like, well, if they're deleted, like they're just out there somewhere and there's not really a way of getting them back. But that was really the biggest thing, was just that chunk of emails missing.
First and foremost, Chris would never have an affair when he's in love with someone, and we were in love. His past relationships, every single past relationship, had ended with the woman cheating on him. And I know how devastating that is, and he would not do that himself. There was not another woman.
At first I thought, okay, if something happened with him and Leash, or the homestead was too much, then he might have ran a little bit to get away.
Chris was a guy who was getting into his mid-30s, and it's not rare at all for men who get into their early 30s to have a midlife crisis and run away from home. I mean, that's not rare at all. That actually happens all the time. You know, it's something you've got to consider. It's going to be nearly impossible to find somebody in the Ozarks when they disappear. I mean, it's really this perfect place for a disappearance. It's very rural, it's rough ground. Not a lot of people live here, which means there's not going to be a lot of witnesses. There's no surveillance footage. Given all that, the chances of him being found are very remote.
9 months after Chris's disappearance, we moved down here to Missouri. And in March of 2023, I went to go for a job interview in Lebanon. And when I went in for the interview, I left, and I'm driving in the left lane, and I see somebody in a plumbing truck to the right of me. And it looks just like Chris. He acting like Chris. He was in the driver's seat, like rocking back and forth, laughing. He looked so much like Chris. By the time everything clicked in my head, I was taking the exit and he pulled into the gas station. But what if it was? You know, what if it was Chris and I just missed my shot to catch him?
It does add some weight to this idea that maybe he is alive. Maybe he did voluntarily disappear, want to start a new life. Maybe he ran away with somebody.
I need to call the detective. I gotta find my husband.
If you knew it looked like Chris, you knew he was missing, why didn't you take the time to walk up and say, hey, Chris? Or actually follow that plumber's van and just walk up and, act like you were an old friend and see if it was him. My thoughts are, you saw him, you didn't care to go chase after him? I mean, if I saw him, I'd have been jumping in my truck, and I don't care if they want to list me as a stalker or what. I'd have been on that van's tail all the way down. If I saw him leaving, I would have been right into my truck and following it.
I should have stopped to get gas because I kind of hold regret. Like, I should have put more thought into that. Because, what if it was him? And I stop at the same gas station every night now after I get off work, hoping to see that van. To this day, I still haven't found this van. I've looked everywhere. It's like it just disappeared.
But there have been a couple sightings of Chris, my daughter's boyfriend, Blake. Then I was in the feed store a few weeks later, and the same lady who keeps this poster up, she's like, I had a customer come in and said he could have swore he saw Chris in Lebanon. Well, that's 2 sightings in that same town. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
The sightings have all been so close to us, only 50 minutes away, and they definitely brought us hope, but why is he so close and he hasn't said anything?
Unfortunately, a lot of these sightings just didn't have a lot of details, and that means that there's really not anything to follow up on. It's just this noise.
So I called the detective, didn't follow through with the sightings, and we're coming up on the year mark in May, and I call him and I said, okay, it's been a few months. What's it gonna take to get you to look into this? Well, it's really hard to, look for someone if we don't have any identifying information. So have you contacted these people? And at that point, I think he just kind of gave me a non-committal answer because I can't tell you if he did or not.
I do believe that Pulaski Police Department down in Missouri dropped the ball big time, but we're not going to give up.
From an investigation standpoint, what else is there to do? I mean, no body has been found, no clue has been found. There's only random reports of sightings. What do you do if you're a detective? It may be that the law enforcement is thinking that he voluntarily disappeared.
When I hear about the sightings, it's actually really hard for me to believe that he'd be so close, but he's not at home. And I don't know what to think of it, because that's not my husband. My husband would never be so close, yet so far away from his family. So I honestly don't know. I don't know what to believe, and I don't know how to feel about it. I really don't. I don't see my husband willingly leaving his children. And even if we didn't have such a good marriage, which we did, he wouldn't have done that to those kids. He wouldn't have left those kids. And so I don't think this was his choice.
As this case hits the 1-year mark, there haven't been any new developments. And we really don't know how active the investigation is. It's more important now than ever to get the story out there, because getting Chris's face out there could be the key to solving this. And it's up to the media to help make that happen.
It's been 14 months and I haven't quit looking for my husband, and I won't. My kids deserve answers. I deserve answers. But it's really hard to take care of kids if you don't take care of yourself. And it's hard to find your husband if you're not taking care of yourself. So I had to make a decision. I could let this kill me, or I could let it make me stronger. And I chose to let it make me stronger.
I believe he was stressed and depressed, and maybe he just needed time. Do I think he's hurt? No. I don't believe he was forced to do anything. I don't think anybody can give anybody a clear answer on what it was.
The only thing I don't believe happened for sure was suicide. I absolutely do not think he committed suicide. I think it's possible it could have been foul play, but I also think it's possible that it was a mental breakdown and he left with the intentions of coming back. He just needed a break, but a year and a half later, where is he and why has no one found him?
This is a case that hasn't gotten a lot of traction. It hasn't gone viral. It hasn't gotten into the major media markets in the state, but at this point, there just isn't any evidence to give a clear picture of what happened to Chris. I mean, this case is truly a mystery.
We need him back. If nothing else, the little ones need him back, because they deserve to be raised with a father.
I've never had a better friend than my husband. I would tell Chris that he needs to come home. Life's not any good without him. Chris is loved by so many people. And he's a loving father. He's a loving husband. And I believe someone out there knows something. If you know of anything, call the sheriff's department. These kids deserve answers. They need to know where their dad is. They need their dad home. I need my husband home.
Braden Fuchsa disappeared on Monday, July 15th, 2009. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Braden Fuchsa's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to him. Braden Fuchsa vanishes in summer 2009.
It was just so out of character.
His parents panic when they discover a missing handgun.
My heart just sank.
And a puzzling trail of clues that he's left in his wake.
We didn't know if he hit north, south, east, or west.
Authorities discover that this young man has been guarding a dark secret.
Braden was pretty freaked out about having spent a night in jail.
And the search for him turns into a manhunt 700 miles away.
At this point, they would probably be looking for a body.
It's July 2009. 22-year-old Braden Fuchsa is enjoying summer on his own. He's just moved out of his parents' house into an apartment in the college town of Lawrence, Kansas.
Braden was really dead set that he wanted to be out on his own. He had the opportunity to move in with an individual that he went to school with. They had found him an apartment, and they were going to move in together.
It was a big deal for me for him to leave home, but he wanted to be independent, which we encourage. I mean, you have to let him go at some point.
Braden still sees his parents often, visiting them at home in Olathe, just 20 miles east of Lawrence.
He'd come over to eat and he'd come over to get leftovers. Todd likes to grill, and so that was Braden's big thing, was to grill, and he would come over and they would trade cooking secrets and recipes.
Braden also stops by regularly on his way to and from work. He's a security guard at a large outdoor retailer in Olathe, not far from his parents' house.
He said his dream job would be to work at Bass Pro, so he could be around the fishing rods and the guns and everything.
When he's not at work, Braden spends almost all his time doing outdoor activities.
Braden, from the get-go, enjoyed the outdoors. We boated, we skied and tubed and wakeboard. Every free moment that we had, we were fishing. He was an outdoors person, 100%.
He's been camping since he can remember, since he was a toddler.
What is that? Did you catch him?
He loved to fish, and he loved to hunt.
Braden has an especially strong affinity for mountains, which was apparent on a family trip to Colorado in 2007.
He had more fun that week. He was constantly, oh, let's stop and do this, and let's stop. You know, we were hiking, and I mean, he was just beside himself.
In mid-July 2009, Braden's parents are out of town for a couple days. When they get back home Wednesday the 15th, Starla contacts Braden.
I text him because he knew we had been out of town and told him that we were home, we had made it okay.
Starla exchanges several texts with her son. She tells him that she and Todd have plans to see a film that night.
I told him I hated to cut our time short, but I had to go because the movie was going to start, and I'd talk to him later.
Starla and Todd spend the evening relaxing at the movies. But when they get home, they notice something odd.
Todd had gotten on the computer and was looking, and he said, Braden transferred some money.
It's not a big deal. It's usually one of the type of situations where Braden or a daughter would call and say, I'm short on money, I don't get paid till Friday, can you float me some money? And it happened all the time.
But this time, the amount that Braden has transferred is much higher than usual.
It was $800. Usually we're talking $300-400. Just enough to pay his portion of the rent or insurance being due or something like that. I made a phone call to him and got his voicemail, left him a message just asking him, what's up, were you in trouble, and you got enough money.
Starla and Todd go to bed feeling curious, but not overly worried about the transfer. They figure their son will give them an explanation in the morning. But the next day, Braden doesn't call.
Thursday came around, still hadn't heard from him, and it wasn't like Braden. Starla and him were very close. They text back and forth daily.
Then, another day passes without word from Braden. His parents spend the rest of the week searching for him, making a routine of calling regularly and driving by his apartment and work to look for him.
We didn't know what was going on. We just bound and determined we were going to keep up the ritual of, going to his hangout and try to find him.
Although Braden's parents are very worried, they don't call the police, wanting to respect their son's newfound independence. But they do reach out to his friends, including his ex-girlfriend, Elena Ryan. The young couple dated for almost 4 years, breaking up only a year and a half earlier.
I spoke with Starla and told her that I had seen Braden at a gas station in town. But it was a very brief interaction, just kind of a hi, how you doing sort of thing. He didn't seem overly eager to talk to me. And because he had been trying to pursue a reconciliation prior to that, that seems a little strange.
Elena's encounter with Braden is only hours before Starla's last text with her son on Wednesday, July 15th. His parents' concern grows.
I mean, you can imagine the worry. We were both a wreck.
It's been 4 full days since Starla and Todd have heard from their son. They're at a loss as to what to do next when they have a sudden suspicion.
For some reason, on Sunday morning, we got up and it was just one of those feelings.
In our master bedroom closet, there's a shelf in there.
We kept a 9mm in the closet for protection. Our granddaughter had been there 2 weeks before, and I had put it up high in the closet so that she could not get it. So I had just seen it the week before when I'd went and checked on it.
So I seen the gun case there up on the shelf, and I don't know why I did it, but I just grabbed a hold of the gun case itself. It was empty, and my heart just sank.
Only family members know where the gun is kept. Todd and Starla are sure that Braden has taken it.
The gun was gone, and we become very nervous, and Todd said, we're gonna file a police report now.
The search for Braden takes on a new urgency. Where did he go? And why does he need a gun?
It's the worst feeling in the world. Our stomachs just dropped.
Coming up, Braden's parents are prevented from filing a missing persons report for their son.
Our emotions were extremely high at that point. We didn't know what else to do.
Todd and Starla Fuchsa have not seen or heard from their 22-year-old son Braden in 4 days, despite repeatedly trying to contact him. But the alarms really go off when a handgun goes missing from their home.
The minute we discovered the gun was missing, we went straight to the police.
But at the Olathe Police Department, the Fuchsas are not permitted to file a missing persons report for Braden because he is over 21 and no longer living at home.
Our problem was he was an adult. He's still our child, but they don't see it that way.
They actually told us since he was living in Lawrence with a roommate, the roommate would need to be the one that submitted the report.
And it was kind of frustrating because our emotions were extremely high at that point. We didn't know what else to do.
Just in conversation, I mentioned that, well, he's got my pistol. That changed the whole subject. They automatically took our report and filed it.
Braden's parents give police a detailed description of their son, his vehicle, and the handgun. Detective Kenton Thompson is put on the case.
I reviewed the report that we had this missing 22-year-old man, and that he basically had just disappeared. We've got the handgun gone from his parents' house, so obviously now we've got this concern of what's that about.
As Detective Thompson begins his investigation, Braden's parents go home and wait. But they can't stop thinking about the gun.
You don't know if he was gonna hurt himself, if something went wrong and he was protecting himself, if something had happened to him and somebody was after him. You just don't know.
Braden's parents are confident that their son is an experienced gun user.
He's been using a gun since he was big enough to walk. He was hunting by the time he was 5.
But they also know that the gun that Braden took from their house is not meant for hunting.
A lot of police carry 9mm. It's more for target shooting, and it's more of a protection gun than anything.
Braden's former girlfriend Elena is mystified as well.
Braden had his own guns. He had his own handgun. I know he had one in Lawrence. Why would he take his dad's handgun instead of his own?
Looking for information, Braden's parents try calling the last people to have contact with their son.
Braden's cell phone was part of our account, so I had access to his records.
And we took like the last 20 numbers and he texts them.
You know, this is Braden's dad. Haven't seen Braden in a little while. Can you please call me?
At first, no one responds. But slowly, calls start coming in, including one from Braden's roommate.
He called, and him and I visited a little bit, and he did not know where Braden had gone.
But his roommate does know something else.
We found out that on Wednesday, Braden grabbed his bag and told his roommate that he was coming over to Olathe to spend the night with Todd and I, with his parents.
But Braden's parents were home on Wednesday night, and Braden never showed up.
To say that he was coming to our house was nothing big, and the roommate wouldn't have checked it out. We wouldn't have thought anything about it.
Given Braden's lie, his parents tried to pin down their son's actual movements.
We knew he had been at our house at some time because the gun was missing. We have the neighbors across the street, and we went over and asked them if they had seen Braden, and they said yes, they had seen him at the house that morning and said he was there about 15 minutes or so. He had pulled in, waved to him, you know, hollered hi, went into the house, and come back out and waved to him again and got in his car and left. So that was about 10:30, 10:40.
It was later that same day that Starla last texted with Braden. His cell phone bill indicates that Braden didn't call or text anyone else after that point.
I had talked to him at 2:30, so that kind of gave us a timeline of what he was doing.
As Braden's parents try to put all the pieces together, another clue surfaces. Todd receives a call from Megan Loach, who, unknown to his parents, is Braden's new girlfriend.
I met Braden at a party in Lawrence at the end of May 2009. Braden is really funny. He's the center of anything. Everybody who was at the party was there for Braden. Everybody knew Braden, and he made me laugh. I instantly liked Braden, and I think he instantly liked me.
Megan and Braden have only been dating for 2 months, but she feels close enough to him that she is disturbed by his behavior the last time they meet, the night before he disappears.
He spent the night at my house. We made dinner and we were hanging out. Braden was just really upset and just not his normal self. Braden's really outgoing and he's always making people laugh, and it was weird to see him just worried. He just looked worried.
The next morning, Wednesday, the day he disappears, Braden leaves abruptly.
I think it was about mid-morning. Braden got up and left, and he usually doesn't leave without saying goodbye or something, or he usually hangs around. And then I had heard a car start in the parking lot. So I looked out my window and he was pulling out. So I texted him and said no goodbye or not saying goodbye anymore or something. Braden just texted me back and said goodbye, Megan. That was it. That was the last time I had talked to him.
4 days later, no one, including his parents, has heard from Braden. And the next phone call sends the Fuchsas even deeper down the rabbit hole.
Later that afternoon, we got a phone call from the police department. They had located his vehicle in Douglas, Wyoming area.
Coming up, Braden has been hiding a dark secret from his family.
We would never have suspected that something like this was going on, ever. It was almost like a Twilight Zone moment.
On July 15th, 2009, Braden Fuchsa leaves his home in Lawrence, Kansas. His whereabouts are completely unknown by his friends and family. Then, 4 days later, police report that his vehicle has been found in Wyoming.
What is in Wyoming? He knew no one in Wyoming, and why is he going that direction? What was causing him to go there? We were just a little dumbfounded, to be honest. There was a lot going through our minds.
Wyoming Highway Patrol found the vehicle as an abandoned vehicle. They did a check on it at 10:44 a.m. on Thursday, July 16th. There's no one around it. Now, at that point, Braden had not been reported missing, so they left because they had no other information available to them.
3 days later, on Sunday, July 19th, Braden's parents filed a missing persons report. It's only then that Braden's information is entered into the National Crime Information Center database and made available to authorities across the country.
We got what's called a delayed entry hit off of that tag, which told us that back on the 16th, that tag was run by the Wyoming Highway Patrol.
Braden's parents tell the police that as far as they are aware, their son doesn't know anyone in Wyoming, nor has he ever been there. The development in the case makes them very uneasy.
I mean, there's just so many missing pieces to this whole thing. The more information that kept coming up, the more confused we got, and it was just so out of character.
Looking for answers, Detective Thompson contacts many of the same people that Braden's parents have spoken to. He agrees that something seems very wrong.
I work a lot of juvenile cases, and typically the first people I talk to is their girlfriend or their boyfriend and their best friend. Those two people. If anyone's going to have information, you usually have some idea of what has happened. And in this case, his roommate was his best friend, and he has no information. And Megan was completely surprised by it also.
Braden's former longtime girlfriend, Elena, isn't surprised that he didn't confide in anyone.
From my perspective, Braden didn't have a lot of close friends. He was a sweet guy, but he was very quiet. I don't know if I would call him shy, but he was just very quiet and didn't put himself out there.
But Braden's new girlfriend has a differing account of his character.
Braden was a very outgoing person. I'm kind of shy, so Braden definitely had to be more outgoing to get me kind of out of my shell. It's weird hearing about someone that you were so close to in a situation that you never expected. It started to become more like I never really knew Braden.
As Detective Thompson struggles to get some insight into Braden's actions, a possible motive emerges. Braden is facing potential prison time on a theft charge.
The theft charge resulted from Braden stealing some cash from his employer. It was a felony level theft, which means in Kansas it was over $1,000.
Braden's parents were not told of their son's arrest when they filed the missing persons report. When police call to notify them, they're stunned.
We were very shocked. He'd never been in trouble ever. I don't know if he'd ever even had a speeding ticket. He was not that kind of kid.
Braden is a straight, go-forward kid. And when he was in trouble, his mom usually knew about it. He would confess. So, just anything to happen like that was just, it didn't happen with Braden.
But as Braden's parents think back to their son's behavior, the recent transfer from their account, as well as some earlier events, they begin to recognize signs of his growing money problems.
Towards the mid-summer time frame, Bass Pro had cut his department to a limited amount of hours, and it left him with 8 hours for the entire week.
Still, Braden manages to keep his true financial state under wraps.
Braden reinforced us that he had enough side jobs that he was getting by.
But in reality, Braden's financial troubles are quickly catching up with him.
His roommate told me in June, Braden was late getting his share of the rent to him. He didn't think a whole lot about that at the time. But then in July, he was late again, and like a week late.
As Braden's parents later learn, their son is so desperate for money that a week before he disappears, he dips into the till at work and gets caught.
Braden worked in security at Bass Pro. So his job was transferring money back and forth at closing time, putting stuff in the safe. The way we understand is they were closing up. Braden had taken money from the registers to the lockup spot. They confronted Braden when he come into work the next day. Braden said, yeah, it's back at my apartment. They brought in the police, talked to him a while. He confessed everything, and that police actually took him back to Lawrence to pick up the money. It's my understanding that he returned nearly all of the money. I don't think quite all of it, but nearly all of the money.
Despite his cooperation with the law, Braden is immediately taken into custody.
After that initial report was made and he was arrested, he was taken directly to the Johnson County Adult Detention Center.
Braden spends the night in jail. He is released the next day, but according to Braden's roommate, the harrowing experience of being locked up stays with him.
Braden was, quote, pretty freaked out about having spent a night in jail. Being arrested, for him was a pretty major life event and was distressing for him.
Braden was scared. I think when he got arrested, they had exaggerated how much trouble he was in, and I think that Braden he's never been in trouble before, and he was just really frightened by that, and he thought he was going to go to jail for, a couple of years.
Braden is due in court for a preliminary hearing on July 16th. But as the date approaches, Braden appears to set a plan in motion.
When he left his apartment on the 15th, he told his roommate, I'm going to go spend the night with my parents in Olathe. Okay? That was Wednesday night. He had court the next day. Well, that is actually when he left.
When his case is called the next morning, Braden's car is already 2 states away, in Wyoming. Braden is nowhere to be found. All signs point to his being a fugitive from the law, but no one saw it coming.
We would never have suspected that something like this was going on, ever, because we've always had such an open relationship with our kids. It was almost like a Twilight Zone moment. It's like, what is this? I don't understand.
From his conversations with friends and family, Detective Thompson paints a portrait of what he believes to be Braden's last days in Kansas. A young man, ashamed of his crime and extremely afraid of getting a harsh sentence, panics and flees.
I believe his perception of it was that it was going to be much more serious for him than it probably would have been. This was the lowest level that would qualify as a felony theft. He didn't have any criminal history, so this would not have been a potentially serious sentence. It wasn't going to involve a prison term or anything like that. If he truly understood the likely outcome, perhaps he would not have been so distraught about the arrest.
Myself, my wife, the detective have all called and left voicemails on his phone saying that come back, hit your court date. This is not as bad as you think.
While there now seems to be strong motive for Braden's sudden bolt from Kansas, his exact whereabouts are still a mystery. Is Braden running from the law and carrying a handgun? Or has something much worse happened to him? Coming up, as more details come to light, investigators make a devastating discovery.
We only missed having some contact with him by an hour or maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
After being arrested for a felony-level theft, Braden Fuchsa flees his home state of Kansas. On the day he is due in court for a preliminary hearing, his car turns up 700 miles away in Wyoming. But Braden is nowhere to be found. As the details of Braden's case emerge, the investigation focuses on the largest piece of evidence, Braden's car.
When the Highway Patrol found the vehicle, Braden was not present.
And then we got a call that they had went ahead and opened it. Nothing looked suspicious in it whatsoever.
The Wyoming Highway Patrol tows the vehicle to Douglas, a small town just north of where it was found. Braden's parents make the long drive to pick it up themselves.
Star and I left early Friday morning and drove the entire route to Douglas.
I think the drive to get there was about 13 hours. It was a very long drive. You're very anxious because you're scared of what you're going to find once you get there. It was a very emotional trip.
As Braden's parents make their way to Douglas, they retrace the journey they believe their son made 10 days earlier.
From Cheyenne north to Douglas, the population is hardly any. You go through some very small towns along the way. The houses are far and few between. It's got the hills and very pretty country.
As they drive through the changing landscape, they look for physical cues that would indicate why Braden chose this direction.
We don't really understand why that area, even though it's absolutely beautiful. There were the plains there, it's just gorgeous, but that's not what he's always wanted. I mean, he's always wanted the mountains. So the area that we found the car, it just doesn't coincide with what we know that he wanted.
It's late at night by the time the Fuchses arrive in Douglas. The next morning, they go directly to the tow yard to pick up Braden's car.
This is something that's kind of bothered me. There was a key code on the door, a lock, and Braden always used that. He always stuck his keys under the floor mat. That was his habit. And I looked under the floor mat and the keys were there. That just, in my eyes, tells me he locked his vehicle and walked away.
As Starla and Todd continue to look through their son's belongings, the more convinced they are that Braden willingly left his car behind.
The clothes looked like he had went through the bag, kind of trying to sort out what he was going to take and what he wasn't going to take.
Because Braden has so recently moved out of his parents' home, Starla and Todd have a good idea of what items he might be carrying with him.
His cell phone was missing and he took his wallet. The boots were gone. There was a pair of jeans, so that tells me that he had one pair of jeans, the pair he was wearing, the boots, maybe a couple t-shirts, and the gun was missing.
But why Braden abandoned his car baffles detectives. Was he trying to throw off police, or did he leave his car by the side of the highway in the hopes that it would be found?
I quite honestly just cannot make sense of that. I don't know why he would abandon that vehicle that way where he did, because you certainly know it's going to be found. I mean, that's probably the easiest place to find a vehicle. You leave alongside the interstate, you know the highway patrol is going to come by and stop and check on it.
Upon their return to Kansas, the Fuchses hand over to the Olathe police several items they found in the car. One of them leads Detective Thompson to a key witness.
That was a receipt from a tire repair place out of Wheatland, Wyoming. That receipt indicated that he had purchased a used tire and, of course, it had the company's name and phone number